The wind tore across the North Sea, hurling sheets of rain against the steel platform. JJ wiped the salt from her eyes and kept her gaze on the drill monitor, its red digits flickering through the storm. The others had already retreated to the break room, but she stayed. She always did. Out here, work was simpler than life on shore. Machines did not lie. A sudden rumble rose above the storm. Not thunder, rotor blades. Everyone turned as a black helicopter approached the rig, slicing through the mist like a dark omen. It bore a silver crest on its side, an emblem JJ had never seen before. The foreman called out, half shouting over the roar, "Visitors for you, JJ." She frowned. No one ever visited her. Her life was a rhythm of work, sleep, and sea spray. When the chopper landed, two figures stepped out, one tall man in a wool coat and a woman dressed too fine for the wind. Their clothes looked wrong against the rusted metal of the platform. The woman's eyes found JJ at once. Sharp. Assessing. Disapproving. "Miss Joanna Barlow," the man asked, though it sounded more like a statement than a question. JJ blinked, a mix of disbelief and irritation spreading through her chest. "It's JJ. And you've got the wrong person." The woman's expression softened into something that tried to look maternal, but there was calculation behind her smile. "No, my dear. We haven't made a mistake. We've been looking for you for 24 years. JJ laughed, a short, brittle sound swallowed by the wind. "You must be joking." But then the man opened a folder and held up a faded photograph, a baby with a scar above her lip, wrapped in a hospital blanket. Her own eyes stared back at her. For a moment, the world tilted. The woman stepped closer, her perfume too rich for the air. "I am Meredith Barlow," she said. "This is my husband, Lord Arthur Barlow. And you, Joanna, our daughter." The foreman's voice cut through the silence. "JJ, what's going on?" She shook her head slowly. "I don't know." Meredith Barlow smiled as though she did. "We're here to bring you home." JJ's stomach tightened. "Home," she echoed. "You think I've got a home with you? You left me." Arthur's face twitched, the first sign of discomfort. "There were complications. Things you'll come to understand." JJ looked from one stranger to the other, her pulse hammering in her throat. The helicopter blades began to spin again, kicking up gusts that whipped her hair across her face. She could walk away, she thought. Stay here among the oil and the sea, where no one expected her to be anything but useful. But curiosity, dangerous, burning curiosity, rooted her to the spot. "Why now?" she asked. Meredith's lips curved. "Because time is running out. For all of us." The words were almost lost in the roar of the engine, but JJ heard them. And though she did not yet know it, the moment she stepped into that helicopter, her life, and the truth behind her forgotten past, would never be the same. The sea raged below as the chopper lifted off, carrying her away from everything she had ever known. And somewhere beyond the clouds, the Barlow estate awaited her return. The rain had stopped by the time the helicopter descended over the rolling hills of Surrey. Below them stretched an endless estate, manicured lawns glistening under the grey sky. JJ pressed her hand against the window, watching the Barlow mansion emerge from the mist like something out of another century, vast, cold, and beautiful in a way that felt almost cruel. As the helicopter settled on the landing pad, a line of servants appeared on the gravel driveway, standing perfectly still in the drizzle. A butler in a dark tailcoat stepped forward, opening the door as Meredith Barlow climbed out first, her heels clicking sharply against the stones. JJ followed, clutching her duffel bag, a stark contrast to the polished world around her. Meredith's tone was smooth but distant. "Welcome home, Joanna." JJ's boots left muddy prints across the marble floor as they entered the grand hall. Crystal chandeliers hung above her, and portraits of stern-faced ancestors stared down from the walls. The air smelled faintly of lavender and money. Arthur Barlow gestured toward the sweeping staircase. Your room is ready. You must be tired after the journey. JJ's voice was flat. You mean after 24 years? The butler froze for half a second, unsure whether to pretend he hadn't heard. Meredith, however, smiled without warmth. You have your mother's spirit. It will need refining. Before JJ could reply, another voice floated down the stairs. Well, look who's finally arrived. A young woman in a silk robe descended gracefully, her blonde hair arranged perfectly despite the hour. Claire Barlow. The daughter everyone knew, the one who had grown up in privilege while JJ was buried in the noise of oil rigs and sea spray. Claire gave a delicate laugh. She looks just like the photo, Mother. Except, a little rougher. JJ stared at her. And you look exactly like I imagined. Polished on the outside. Empty on the inside. The servants looked horrified. Arthur's jaw tightened. Meredith's eyes gleamed like sharpened glass. Joanna, Meredith said coolly, we do not use such language in this house. Then maybe I shouldn't be in this house, JJ replied. For a moment, the tension was thick enough to touch. Then Arthur stepped between them, placing a firm hand on JJ's shoulder. That's enough for tonight. Claire, show your sister to her room. Claire's lips curled. Of course. They ascended the stairs in silence. The corridor was long and cold, lined with heavy doors and faded tapestries. Claire stopped outside one and opened it with exaggerated courtesy. Here you are, sister. The East Wing. You'll find everything you need. Oh, except a mirror. Mother thought it best to remove it until after your surgery. JJ froze. My what? Claire smiled sweetly. Your facial reconstruction. Mother says a Barlow should look like a Barlow. JJ stepped closer, her voice low and dangerous. Tell your mother that this Barlow doesn't take orders. She shut the door in Claire's face. The echo rang down the corridor. Inside, the room was as elegant as the rest of the house, silk sheets, a mahogany writing desk, and a window overlooking the foggy gardens. But beneath the finery, JJ felt the weight of something else. Secrets. Expectations. A life she had never chosen. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the duffel bag at her feet. Inside it were her work gloves, a half-empty notebook, and a photo of Susan, the woman who had raised her, the only person who had ever truly loved her. JJ whispered to the picture, I'll get what we need, Susan. I promise. Outside, the rain began again, tapping against the glass like fingers. And somewhere in the house, unseen, someone was listening. The following morning arrived grey and silent. Mist coiled over the gardens, wrapping the Barlow estate in a pale shroud. JJ woke early, her body still tuned to the rhythm of the oil rigs, up before dawn, no matter how soft the bed. The silence in this house, however, was suffocating. She dressed in her work trousers and a plain shirt, drawing a disapproving glance from the maid who brought her breakfast on a silver tray. The woman tried to hide her surprise when JJ asked for coffee instead of tea. As you wish, Miss Barlow, she murmured, though the name sounded foreign even to JJ's ears. Downstairs, the corridors stretched endlessly. Paintings lined the walls, landscapes, hunting scenes, and faces that seemed to follow her as she walked. Then she saw it. A portrait larger than all the others. A woman seated on a velvet chair, her posture perfect, her gaze steady. JJ stopped dead. The woman's scar was faint, running from her lip to her chin. The resemblance was unmistakable. Meredith Barlow. She stood before her own mother's painted likeness, unable to look away. Beneath the signature at the bottom, a date, 1999. The year JJ disappeared. Behind her, a voice interrupted the stillness. She sat for that portrait the week after you were declared dead. JJ turned sharply. Lord Arthur Barlow stood a few paces away, his hands clasped behind his back. His face was lined with fatigue and something else, remorse, perhaps. She had it painted, he continued quietly, to remind herself of the cost. JJ's tone was edged with disbelief. The cost of what? Abandoning a child. Arthur's eyes flickered. Of protecting a family. JJ folded her arms. You mean protecting your reputation? He sighed, his gaze moving to the window. You were born with a cleft palate. Meredith couldn't bear the idea that the press would see it. The Barlow name had just begun to rise after generations of scandal. Your existence was inconvenient. JJ's jaw tightened. So she buried me. Alive. Arthur's expression hardened, but there was shame in his voice. I fought her. But Meredith, she controls everything. The company, the estate, even the trust. And now, that trust requires your signature to pass on to Claire. That is why she needs you back. JJ stared at him, each word sinking like lead. So this is it. You don't want me, you want my name. Arthur hesitated, then said softly, it isn't as simple as that. She stepped closer. It's exactly that. Before Arthur could answer, the echo of heels approached down the corridor. Meredith appeared, elegant as ever, her perfume filling the air. Arthur, she said smoothly, the solicitor is ready for us. And Joanna, darling, do wipe the anger off your face. It doesn't suit you. JJ forced a thin smile. Neither does pretending. Meredith's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing more. She merely gestured for JJ to follow, her rings glinting like tiny cages around her fingers. They entered the drawing room, where a man in a grey suit stood waiting beside a table stacked with documents. He bowed slightly. Miss Barlow, this concerns the amendment to the family trust. It only requires your signature. JJ looked at the paper, her name already typed neatly beneath the line. The Barlow crest shimmered in gold ink at the top. For a moment, she imagined Susan's hands, scarred, trembling, reaching for help she could not afford. How much? JJ asked suddenly. The solicitor blinked. I beg your pardon. JJ's voice was steady. How much is my signature worth? Arthur shifted uncomfortably. Meredith's tone was cool as glass. Joanna, this isn't about money. Oh, I think it is, JJ said. Everything in this house is. Meredith's smile tightened. You'll sign, my dear. Eventually. They always do. JJ held her gaze for a long moment, then turned toward the window. Beyond the mist, the estate stretched for miles, beautiful and cursed. She felt the weight of every eye in the portraits behind her, watching. Waiting. And as the clock chimed 11, JJ made a silent promise. She would not sign anything until she knew exactly what the Barlows were hiding. Because somewhere within these polished halls lay the truth. And it was not finished with her yet. The great dining room of Barlow Hall glittered with silver and glass under the soft light of the chandeliers. JJ sat at the far end of the long oak table, her reflection trembling in her wine glass. Around her, the Barlow family dined in near silence, Lady Meredith slicing her lamb with slow precision, Claire scrolling through her phone, and Lord Arthur pretending to read the evening paper though his eyes never moved across the page. Do eat, Joanna, Lady Meredith said, her tone polite yet chilling. You've hardly touched your meal. Surely the cuisine here is different from what you're used to. JJ forced a smile. It's lovely, thank you. Across the table, Claire gave a delicate laugh. Perhaps she misses all rigs and greasy spoons, she murmured. Lord Arthur cleared his throat, uncomfortable. That's enough, Claire. JJ watched him carefully. He was a man worn down by regret, his once commanding voice now hesitant. Yet every time their eyes met, he looked away, as though she were a living ghost haunting his conscience. Halfway through dinner, a servant entered with a letter on a silver tray. "For Miss Barlow," he said. Lady Meredith raised an eyebrow. "Who would be writing to you already?" JJ accepted the letter, her pulse quickening. The handwriting was unfamiliar, sharp, hurried, and distinctly unfeminine. She unfolded it beneath the tablecloth and read the words scrawled across the page. "They think you're one of them. But I know who you really are. Meet me by the old stables at midnight." Her fork clattered onto her plate. Claire snorted softly, thinking it was just nerves, but JJ's heart was pounding. Someone in this house knew the truth, and that meant her plan was already in danger. When the dinner ended, JJ excused herself, claiming she felt unwell. In truth, she could barely breathe under the weight of that note in her pocket. She waited in her room until the clock struck 12, the wind howling outside against the leaded windows. Then, cloaked in her coat, she slipped silently through the corridor. The house was darker than she expected, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. A single candle burned near the back door. JJ followed the path through the garden, the gravel crunching under her boots, until the shape of the old stables loomed ahead, abandoned, ivy crawling up its roof. Someone was already waiting inside. As the candlelight flickered, JJ froze. The face that emerged from the shadows was one she had never expected to see again. The air inside the stables was damp and cold, filled with the scent of earth and old hay. JJ stood still, her breath clouding in the chill. The candlelight trembled, casting long shadows across the rotting beams and rusted tools that hung from the walls. "Still the brave little girl, aren't you?" said the man, stepping forward. His voice carried the roughness of a life lived too hard. JJ's stomach twisted. "Miles," she whispered. He grinned, though it didn't reach his eyes. Miles Reddon. The last person she had expected to find here. Once her closest friend, and the one who had helped her uncover what Barlow Oil had done to her foster mother. He was supposed to be in Aberdeen, far from Surrey, far from danger. "What are you doing here?" she asked, keeping her voice low. "I could ask you the same thing," he said, leaning against a wooden post. "Pretending to be one of them. Living in their house. Eating their food." His gaze darkened. "You've no idea how dangerous that is." JJ clenched her fists. "I know exactly what I'm doing." Miles shook his head slowly. "Do you?" "Because Lady Meredith is not the sort of woman who welcomes strangers. She has a private investigator watching you, Joanna. A man who's already asked questions in Aberdeen." JJ's heart thudded painfully. "How do you know that?" "Because I followed him," Miles said. "He was asking about your past, about your mother. He thinks you're hiding something." The words cut through her like ice. JJ stepped back, her mind racing. If Meredith's investigator had traced her past, then he might have already found the papers, the ones proving that Barlow Oil was responsible for the chemical leak that had destroyed her foster family's livelihood. Miles moved closer. "You need to leave this place before they ruin you, too. You're playing with vipers." JJ's eyes flashed. "No, Miles. I came here for a reason, and I'm not leaving until I get what I came for." He sighed heavily. "You've changed." "So have they," she replied coldly. "They stole everything from us. Now I'll take back what they owe." A sudden noise echoed from outside, the crunch of footsteps on gravel. Miles grabbed her arm and blew out the candle. Darkness swallowed the room. "Quick," he hissed. "Someone's coming." They pressed against the wooden wall as a lantern's glow swept past the stable door. JJ could see the faint silhouette of a tall figure, broad-shouldered, moving with a soldier's precision. The door creaked open. Light spilled inside, revealing the shape of a man JJ recognized instantly. It was Lord Arthur Barlow. "Miles Reddon," he said in a low, steady tone. I thought I told you never to return here. JJ froze, caught between the two men who held the keys to her past, and perhaps, to her ruin. Lord Arthur's lantern swayed, casting ripples of gold across the damp walls. His eyes, sharp and grey as winter mist, moved from Miles to JJ. So, he said quietly, the rumors were true. You brought him here, didn't you, Joanna? JJ swallowed hard. No. He found me. Miles stepped forward. She doesn't owe you an explanation, Arthur. Arthur's expression hardened. You've no right to use my Christian name. Not after what you did. JJ's gaze darted between them. What's going on? How do you two know each other? Arthur didn't answer at once. He turned slightly, lowering the lantern, his jaw tight. Because Miles Reddawn used to work for Barlow Oil. He was our safety inspector, until he disappeared with company documents worth millions in damages. JJ felt as though the ground had shifted beneath her. That's not true, is it? She whispered to Miles. He gave a grim smile. Not quite. I didn't steal them. I took evidence. Records that proved the Barlow family covered up a chemical spill. The same one that poisoned your mother's land. Arthur's hand trembled slightly on the lantern. You destroyed a generation of my family's work, he said. Miles took a step closer. No, Arthur. You destroyed it yourself. You and Meredith. JJ looked at Arthur, her voice shaking. Is that true? Did you know about the spill? Arthur turned away, his silence speaking louder than words. I told you, Miles said softly. You're living among liars. But before JJ could respond, the sound of boots echoed outside again, this time heavier, deliberate. The door swung open, and two men entered wearing black coats and gloves. Take them both, ordered a cold, familiar voice behind them. Lady Meredith stepped into the light, her pearls gleaming, her smile razor-sharp. It seems our little family dinner has attracted too much company. JJ froze as one of the men seized her arm. Miles tried to fight, but a blow sent him sprawling to the floor. Arthur started forward, horrified. Meredith, stop this. They're not criminals. Oh, but they are, Meredith replied coolly. One's a thief. The other an imposter. She turned to JJ. You didn't think we would let a stranger sign our inheritance papers, did you? JJ struggled, but the man's grip was iron. You can't prove anything, she said through clenched teeth. Meredith's smile widened. Actually, my dear, I can. I've already read the file your friend stole. The ledger. It's in my safe now. JJ's breath caught. The ledger. Meredith leaned closer, her perfume heavy and sweet. Yes. The one that proves everything your dear mother fought against. You'll never see it again. JJ's heart pounded. The ledger, the only evidence that could destroy the Barlow family, was now in Meredith's possession. As she was dragged out into the rain, JJ caught Arthur's eyes. For the first time, his mask cracked. There was guilt, deep and unspoken. And fear. Because JJ knew, if Meredith had the ledger, then Arthur's secrets were about to be exposed too. Rain lashed the windows of Barlow Hall as JJ sat locked in a small, dimly lit room beneath the main staircase. The stone walls were damp, the air thick with the scent of mildew and dust. She could hear the faint hum of voices upstairs, Lady Meredith giving orders, servants moving about nervously, and somewhere above, Lord Arthur pacing the floor. JJ's wrists ached from the rope that bound them. She had tried twice to loosen the knot, but it was tied by someone who knew how to restrain without leaving marks. A perfect Barlow trick. At the sound of the door creaking open, JJ lifted her head. It wasn't Meredith who entered, but Arthur. He held a single candle, his face drawn and pale. I told her to let you go, he said quietly. But Meredith, she doesn't listen to reason anymore. JJ stared at him. You let her have the ledger. Arthur's eyes flickered. I didn't know she had it until tonight. You knew enough, JJ shot back. You knew she would do anything to protect the Barlow name. He set the candle on a small table. You don't understand. That book, if it's released, it will destroy more than just the company. It will destroy everything this family has built. Every job, every home that depends on it. JJ laughed bitterly. You sound like a man rehearsing his confession. Arthur lowered his gaze. You remind me of your mother. Her breath caught. You knew her. He hesitated. She came to see me 20 years ago. Before the fire. She had proof of the leak, but Meredith paid her to disappear. When she refused, the evidence was destroyed. Or so we thought. JJ's heart pounded. You knew she was silenced. And you did nothing. I tried to help, he said desperately. But Meredith, she already had the press in her pocket, the police, even the lawyers. I was a coward, Joanna. I let her do it. The door creaked again. Meredith's voice echoed from the corridor. Arthur. What are you doing down there? He turned sharply. Go, he whispered. Through the vent behind the wall. It leads to the old cellar. You'll find the safe there. JJ's pulse quickened. You're helping me. Arthur's expression was weary. I can't undo what I've done. But I can give you a chance to finish it. He began untying her wrists, his hands trembling. The moment the ropes fell away, JJ grabbed the candle and slipped through the narrow vent he had revealed behind a wooden panel. The passage smelled of earth and salt, an old servant tunnel, forgotten for decades. She crawled through the darkness until it opened into a wide stone chamber beneath the house. The air was cold, the walls lined with iron shelves. In the corner stood a large steel safe. JJ set the candle on the ground and ran her hands across the dial. It was heavy, ancient, and locked tight. She could hear footsteps above her now. Meredith's voice, sharp and commanding. JJ closed her eyes and whispered to herself, you can do this. Then she turned the dial, trying to recall the numbers she'd seen engraved on Arthur's old watch, the same one Meredith had tried to hide during dinner. 4 turns left. 2 right. 1 more left. The lock clicked. Inside lay a bundle of papers, bound with red string. The ledger. JJ reached for it just as the door above the stairs opened, and a beam of light cut through the cellar. Step away from that safe, said Lady Meredith's voice, cold and venomous. I warned you, girl. You should have left when you had the chance. JJ froze, clutching the ledger tightly as Lady Meredith's footsteps echoed down the stone steps. The candle flickered violently, casting tall shadows across the cold walls of the cellar. You think you can steal from me and walk away? Meredith hissed. Her eyes gleamed, a predator sizing up her prey. JJ's mind raced. She knew there was no turning back now. Every choice had led to this moment. I am not stealing. I am revealing the truth, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Meredith laughed, a cold, cutting sound that bounced off the stone walls. The truth. You know nothing of truth. You only see what you wish to see. The world is mine to protect. Suddenly, a heavy thud echoed from the hallway above. Arthur appeared at the top of the stairs, his face pale but resolute. Stop this, Meredith. It ends now. Meredith's gaze snapped to him. You traitor. I trusted you. I am done trusting lies, Arthur said. He moved closer to JJ, his hand brushing hers. Go, Joanna. Deliver the ledger. End this before it's too late. JJ glanced at him, then back at Meredith. A shiver ran down her spine. Meredith was older than she had imagined, but still fierce, unyielding. Every step JJ took toward the stairs, Meredith mirrored with a calculated grace, blocking her path. The tension was unbearable. JJ could feel her heartbeat in her throat. She took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage. You will not control this family's future anymore. Meredith lunged forward, her hands reaching for the ledger. JJ dodged, spinning to the side, the old stone walls echoing the scuffle. A heavy vase toppled, shattering into shards. You cannot win, Meredith growled, stumbling but regaining her balance. Yes, I can, JJ whispered fiercely. She ran past her, racing up the staircase into the first light of dawn spilling through the tall windows. Arthur followed, blocking Meredith as JJ reached the main hall. Outside, the village was just waking. The first birds sang, and the sky was painted with hues of pink and gold. JJ clutched the ledger to her chest. Every secret, every lie, every betrayal was finally hers to reveal. Meredith's voice echoed one last time through the hall. This is not over. But JJ did not look back. The morning breeze brushed her hair as she stepped into the new day, the weight of the ledger heavy but freeing in her hands. JJ emerged into the misty morning, the village of Brackenmere stretching quietly before her. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of dew and pine from the surrounding hills. Every step felt heavier, not from fear, but from the weight of the secrets she now held. She reached the edge of the village green and stopped, looking back at the grand manor looming atop the hill. The stone walls seemed less menacing now in the gentle light, yet she knew inside them lay years of deception, betrayal, and carefully hidden truths. Arthur joined her, his expression serious but calm. The ledger will change everything. But are you ready for what comes next? JJ held the leather-bound book closer. I have to be. The people deserve to know the truth, even if it shakes the foundations of everything we thought we knew. As they walked toward the village hall, villagers began to stir, drawn by the unusual stirrings and whispers of the past. Faces appeared at windows, eyes wide with curiosity, some familiar, others strangers, all waiting. JJ took a deep breath and opened the ledger. Names, dates, letters, and accounts spilled across the pages, each line a revelation that would rewrite the history of Brackenmere. The wind picked up, scattering leaves across the green, as though nature itself was urging her forward. Meredith's shadow appeared at the manor balcony, her expression a mixture of fury and disbelief. She could see the crowd gathering, could feel the inevitable unraveling of her carefully woven web. JJ glanced at Arthur and whispered, "This is it. No turning back." With steady hands, she began to read aloud, her voice carrying across the green. Each word struck like lightning, illuminating the truth long buried. The villagers listened, some gasping, some weeping, some nodding with understanding. Meredith clenched her fists, the wind whipping her hair around her face. She knew her reign of control had ended. JJ's courage had drawn the veil from Brackenmere, and nothing could restore the shadows that had ruled it. The morning sun climbed higher, glinting off the manor windows, casting light across the village. The ledger's pages held not just secrets, but the promise of justice, of healing, and of new beginnings. JJ closed the book with quiet finality. She did not look back at the manor, or at the fading shadow of Meredith. She only looked forward, to the lives now touched by the truth, and to the dawn of a village finally free from its hidden past.